Prolonged sitting in a flexed posture. Part 1. Biomechanical symptoms. Lower body. Do you recognize this sitting position? Do you sit most hours of the day? Do you feel discomfort or pain in your upper or lower back? What happens to your body when you slump in your chair for too long? Prolonged sitting in this position will in time cause rigidity and tightness in the tight muscles, and we can see them colored in blue. Now, these are chronically short muscles, what we call locked short. In addition to the posterior leg muscles, the hip flexors are also chronically short from prolonged sitting. Rigidity in the hip flexors is a direct cause of weakness in the antagonist hip extenders. Muscle imbalance. Muscle imbalances are the #1 cause of lower back pain. What happens to the sacroiliac joint? The joint between the sacrum and the pelvic bones. The sacroiliac joint and the sacroiliac ligaments are under load. What happens to the lumbar spine? Here we can see a neutral spine and lumbar flexion. In prolonged slumped posture, the lumbar spine is flexed over time. Damage includes increase in posterior annulus strain, damage to the annulus of the disc, increase in intradiscal pressure. What happens to the connective tissues? Flexed postures place stress on the posterior passive tissues. In addition, the posterior ligaments are also impaired. In the second part of the video, we'll learn the biomechanical symptoms in the upper body. Prolonged sitting. Prolonged sitting in a flexed posture. Part 2. Biomechanical symptoms. Upper body. Do you recognize this sitting position? Do you sit most hours of the day? Do you feel discomfort or pain in your upper or lower back? What happens to the thoracic spine? The thoracic spine is extensively convex, with the shoulder and head tilted forward. The pectoralis minor is held chronically short, locked short. Abdominal wall weakness. The abdominal muscles and fascia are locked short. Over time, abdominal girdle elasticity is impaired. In the cervical muscles, the sternocleidomastoid mastoid is locked short, as is the upper trapezius. Here we see what happens to the neck muscle in forward head posture. We can see that all the muscles are locked short. See how their shortness pulls the head forward, or how the forward head posture shortens them. In a neutral spine sitting position, the spinal erector muscles stabilize the spine. In slumped sitting, all the load is moved from the muscles to the posterior passive tissues. The body rests on the tissues, creating imbalance. The middle trapezius holds the whole shoulder girdle eccentrically loaded tight. Lack of rest for the muscle and tissue surrounding it will in time cause local tenderness, tightness, and pain. This animation illustrates the effect of tightness on posture. In a kyphotic position, the front line tissue is locked short instead of being in a neutral position. Shortening of the superficial front line. In addition to the superficial front line, in a slumped posture, we can see also shortening of the spinal line. The oblique abdominals are locked short, and a chain reaction pull forward the serratus anterior, which connects to the rhomboid tissues, and these connect to the cervical extensors. In this position, the entire spinal line is pulled downward, and here we can see the effect of flexion of the thoracic vertebrae, rounded shoulders, and forward head position. This animation illustrates only the myofascia that envelops the muscle where the locking we are talking about is created. This is what we have to treat. Kyphotic position and slumped sitting over time causes shortening of the superficial front line and shortening of the spinal line. So what do we do with this knowledge? How do we treat it? You'll find the answers in the following animations. Prolonged sitting Part 3, Recommendations for Reducing Preventing Damage from Prolonged Slumped Sitting. Do you recognize this sitting position? It's important to follow the 3 principles shown in the video. 1. Divide loads among the tissues. 2. Maintain natural spinal curves and avoid flexed posture over time. 3. Include breaks for movement. Principle 1. Divide loads among the tissues. Varying sitting patterns is an important principle. There's no one ideal posture that should be maintained all day long. In order to prevent focused load, it's not good to sit in any static position for hours on end. It's important to change the type of sitting every half hour. Every so often, take standing positions, and during the workday, be sure to include 1 to 2 hours of standing. Principle 2. Maintain neutral spinal curves and avoid prolonged flexed posture. When sitting with the backrest, place a pillow between the lower back so that you can maintain the spinal curves in a neutral position. Maintain lumbar lordosis. Include sitting without a backrest. You can also use a regular chair and simply sit on its front edge. Sitting without a backrest while maintaining the spinal curve is an exercise in its own, and requires accurate posture alignment and gentle activation of the deep erector spina muscles over time. Therefore, this ability has to be built up gradually in the following way. Week 1. The minute per hour exercise. At least 1 minute during every hour of work, be sure to sit with elongated back. Week 2. Increase the time you hold the position to 2 minutes every hour. Week 3. 3 minutes every hour. While sitting, stretch your head upward like a puppet on a string. Thus, gradually add minutes of exercise until you can spend most of the time in an optimal postural position without effort. Make sure that the height of the chair is adjusted so that your knees can be lower than pelvic height, and in this way, you can maintain neutral spine curves. Principle 3. Include movement. Is it worth taking short breaks to walk from your seat to another place? Every hour or two, take a break for easy stretches and mobility exercises for the spine, neck, and shoulder griddle. Stretch the front line by upward lengthening, raise your arms over your head, look up, and extend the back. Every hour, stretch your back to concave and convex positions. This exercise can be done while sitting at work. 1. Divide loads among the tissues. 2. Maintain neutral spinal curves and avoid flexed posture over time. 3. Include breaks for movement. Your sitting and posture are also affected directly by your work environment.